Please come to order. Good morning. Welcome to the Commissioner of St. Mary's County meeting this date, Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. I am Randy Guy, President and Commissioner of St. Mary's County. I'd like to introduce the other commissioners. Sitting to my right, representing the 1st Commissioner District, which includes Ridge, Piney Point, St. George Island, Mr. Eric Colvin.
Good morning.
Representing the 2nd Commissioner District, which includes Leonardtown, Hollywood, Mr. Mike Hewitt.
Good morning.
Representing the 3rd Commissioner District, which includes Charlotte Hall, 7th District, Golden Beach, and Mechanicsville, Mr. Mike Alderson Jr.
Good morning.
Representing the 4th Commissioner District, which includes Lexington Park, some of California, Gray Mills, and some of Hollywood, Mr. Scott Ostra.
Good morning.
Seated next to Commissioner Ostra at the end of the dais is David Weiskopf, our County Administrator.
Morning.
On my immediate right is Julie Birch, our Recorder for today. Sitting at the table to my right is our Communications Director, Ms. Jenna Guzman.
Good morning.
Our video media production team is behind the glass. Please turn your cell phones off or on vibrate. When you come to the presenter's table, please approach by coming down the center aisle. And remember, this meeting is being televised, so you need to speak clearly and directly into the microphone for recording purposes. In other words, look good. At this time, we have the invocation and pledge by Commissioner Colvin. Please stand.
Almighty God, we thank you for this opportunity to serve today. We ask, Lord, that you would bless our meeting, that you would be with each of us as we make decisions, and that you would give us clear minds and open hearts. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Colvin.
Thank you.
Okay, next we need the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have the Department of Land Use and Growth Management request for a public hearing, zoning 24-0002, Cusick Properties, 25741 Three Notch Road. I think Courtney Jenkins is going to do the presentation. Please come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
The Cusick property consists of approximately 2.15 acres and is owned by Cusick Properties. There is a 2,625 square foot building on the RCL portion of the property, and the RPD portion of the property is vacant except for a driveway that goes to a second lot. The applicant is seeking a comprehensive plan amendment to change the split land use from rural preservation and rural commerce to entirely rural commerce, and a zoning map amendment to change the split zone property from rural preservation district and rural commercial limited district to entirely rural commercial limited district. For piecemeal rezoning, state law requires an applicant to prove, one, that a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood rendering the current zoning inappropriate, or two, when the local legislative body has made a mistake when it rezoned the property to its current zoning designation. Per CZO 21.2.2.a requires that the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners to conduct at least one public hearing on an application for an amendment to the official zoning maps. The site is located at 25741 Three Notch Road in Hollywood. The applicant has identified the neighborhood as being the properties that are adjacent and close to Maryland Route 235 between Loveville Road and Hollywood Road. Next slide, please. Thank you. The land use is currently rural preservation and rural commerce. And the zoning is currently rural preservation district and rural commercial limited district. So per page 424 and 425 of the comprehensive plan, the purpose of the rural preservation land use is to preserve open space and protect land and water resources, and to protect the land and water resource base that is necessary to maintain and support the preferred land uses of agriculture, forestry, fishery activities, and aquaculture. Growth should also be limited to preserve natural environments. The purpose of the rural preservation zoning district, the corresponding zoning, is to preserve the right to farm. And the purpose of the rural commercial Our rural commerce land use designation is to allow small-scale commercial uses outside of growth areas, serving a localized market. The comprehensive plan acknowledges that the intensity of existing uses may be inconsistent with the character of the rural setting. However, their continued operation and opportunity for reasonable expansion can be allowed. And then the corresponding zoning and the purpose of the rural commercial limited district is to accommodate existing small-scale commercial uses serving localized markets in the county that are scattered along the highway and in some cases clustered at intersections. So this request went before the Planning Commission on Monday, February 10th, 2025. No one spoke against the proposed application, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval and for it to come before the commissioners. So at this time, we would request a public hearing for Tuesday, March 25th at a time to be determined by the commissioners. Morning public hearing seems reasonable, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, Commissioner?
I've got a few. So typically, these rezonings are because there was either a mistake in the original zoning, or there's been a change in the character of the neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I would assume, I know this property well, they have the MDIA office there, which I've been to a couple times. So I would say that the character of the neighborhood has changed. They've got a Domino's there, they've got,
Pet groomer?
okay, they've got several commercial.
Yes, there's some small-scale commercial, existing commercial.
Okay, and that RCL makes sense to me. The second thing is this was brought on by, they bought a second piece of property that they did a boundary line adjustment plat.
Yes, sir.
So they took a piece that was RPD, incorporated it into a piece that was RCL.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that created the split zoning.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the other thing is, you say here piecemeal zoning. That doesn't sound good. Explain piecemeal zoning.
That is how the state law,
Is that right? Okay. And when I hear something that's piecemeal, it makes me think it's not well thought
I
out.
did not write that. That comes
Okay,
from
that's-
the
look.
annotated code of Maryland.
That's fine, that's fine.
sir.
Okay, so the other thing is there was no public comment opposed to this.
Correct. There was no public comment.
Well, Commissioners, I don't see any reason for us to oppose. I'm going to move to approve and authorize the Department of Land Use and Growth Management to schedule and conduct a public hearing on March 25th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. here in the Commissioners' building, or Chesapeake Building, regarding ZONE 24-0002 Cusick Properties, LC. Is that an LC or LLC?
It's LC.
Okay. Owner of the property located at 25741 Three Notch Road in Hollywood, Maryland. And the proposed ordinance or ordinances to amend, 1, the 2010 Comprehensive Plan land use map to change the land use designated of the property from rural preservation to rural commerce. And 2, the zoning map to change the property zoning district from rural preservation, RPD, to rural commercial limited, RCL.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time.
Looks like next we go right over to the county administrator time.
Yes, sir, thank you. And we'll start as we always do, Commissioner President Guy, with the draft agendas, moving into the third month, March 4th and March 11th. On March 4th, you'll start at your normal time and place, followed by 3 proclamations, one for National Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, National Nutrition Month, and Women's History Month, followed by county administrator time, commissioner's time, adjourn, and then have a budget work session at 1:30. On Tuesday, March 11th, you'll start at your normal time and place, followed by county administrator time, commissioner's time, closed session for legal advice, adjourn, and then have budget work session at 1:30. And today, the first thing on the agenda is the Sheriff's Office fiscal year 25 agreements from St. Mary's County Health Department for the Detention and Rehabilitation Center. I see the warden and Miss Lottie Bell. Fiscal. Welcome.
Good morning,
Good
ladies.
morning. Before you are four FY25 grant agreements with funding to be used for jail mental health services, jail-based medication, assisted treatment, reentry, and other treatment and support services that promote recovery, resiliency, health, and wellness for individuals who have or are at risk for behavioral health disorders. These agreements total around $1.2 million. There's 3 related budget amendments which are included in this submission. Requesting your approval of the grant MOAs and the related documents. And Warden Thompson and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions,
Okay,
anybody?
I had a few. So it talks in here about a $25,000 county match.
Yes, sir.
Is that on each one of the agreements? Would that be $75,000?
It's actually, how they calculate it is oh, I'm sorry. No, we're on a different grant. We're on the health department grants.
Am I
Then
on?
the next grant has the match. RSAT.
Oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm missing the wrong thing. Are we on the,
It does say there's $25,000 county funds passed through St. Mary's County Health Department.
Yes, the health department provides that.
Oh,
You
that-
all
yes,
fund the
there's
health
two different-
department, and then the health department funnels it back to the detention center.
all right, well, does that money come from the county? is what I'm-
It comes from the county.
Okay,
Yes.
that's
It's
my
a
point.
$25,000 match that is in health department's budget. You all provide it to the health department.
Okay.
Okay.
So we give it to the health department.
And
they're
they
giving
give it
to-
back. Exactly. Because it kind of stayed with the grants when the grants went over from county to the health department.
All right, here's what I want to ask you.
Yes, sir.
Do you have salary savings to pay this $25,000? Yes or no?
It sounds like it's already in
It's
the health
already-
department budget.
Well, I mean,
It's
why can't
already-
it be coming out of their budget?
It's kind of not a county match. They just moved, it was like $25,000 of our money was being used towards the medical.
Mental health, yeah, towards the
health
mental
stuff.
health grant.
So when the grant moved, that moved with it.
All
That
right,
did
well-
come out of our
well,
budget. and it-
Help me understand, it's confusing. So when something says $25,000 county funds,
Yes.
that's not coming from St. Mary's County?
It actually came from the sheriff's office budget, which came from the county.
Okay.
So it was funded by the county through the sheriff's budget and
Well, look,
corrections.
let me just get to the
Little-
point.
little
It's coming
historical.
out of your budget?
Correct, yes.
Fine.
Ultimately, it reduced
Okay.
our budget by 25,000 years ago when it moved over.
Point is, you answered my question. It's
Okay.
not coming out of the counties. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I move to approve the FY25 agreements between the St. Mary's County Health Department and the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office Detention and Rehabilitation Center for STOP, 5-County Maryland Community Justice Treatment Program, and the Day Reporting Program for the total amount of $1,191,309. I further move to approve and authorize the Commissioner President and Sheriff to execute the related documents, including the various budget amendments.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. And next up from the Sheriff's Office was the fiscal year 25 Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Grant Award and Adjustment from GOCAP.
Commissioners, in November 2024, you approved a grant application relative to this grant, the RSAT grant. Although the grant application amount was for $221,270, we have been awarded $189,091, excluding county match, due to a shortened grant term. The federal grant funding is not in the 25 approved budget for this grant. A budget amendment is included to establish budget authority for this project. Please note there is a 25% non-federal match requirement, which is imposed on the total project cost, and thus the match requirement is $63,036. This match would be covered using a portion of the salary and fringe for the offender reentry case managers, which is fully funded by the county in the FY25 approved budget.
So that's in
In
your
the
budget?
sheriff's budget,
Right.
correct.
I had that one figured out. I think I
Yeah,
read
so
that.
when you said 25%, I thought you were talking about this one.
I thought it said 25,000.
You may have.
Yeah,
Sorry.
whatever, we're good. So on this one, though, how come it's only for 6 months?
Yes,
So
sir.
it's lower because it's a shorter period. What happened to the previous 6 months?
So the state did not put the request for proposals out for the grant until like, beginning of November. So what happened is they didn't award it until January, so that's why it's
Okay.
just a
So it was late
6-month.
being awarded.
Yes, sir, and it was late coming out to even apply for it.
So the services weren't being rendered last year or
They were
before?
being rendered because we're mandated by state law to provide medicated assisted treatment to the offenders. It's in the
So
annotated
they were being
code.
rendered, but they weren't being paid for by the state.
No, sir, we did not have the grant monies to pay for it.
Well, this is a good idea.
Is there any chance the state's going to cut this? That you know of?
The RSAT money is on a year-by-year basis, and so far as I know, that is still in play. And just because medicated assisted treatment was House Bill 116 was enacted in 2019, and what happened is in the law, it says that the state will fund it. However, we've had to scrape and scratch to get grant monies in order to take and pay for it. So there is legislation proposed this year. It's Senate Bill 942. We're hoping, we've been working, the Maryland Correctional Administrators Association with the local detention centers has been working very, very hard with MACO to take and get that, so that going forward, originally they had said in the law, it said that we would still have to apply for a grant, and then what they didn't, they would make up the difference. But it's still working its way through the judicial process. Our end goal is to be able to take and set, because like in January, we submit our budget to y'all to be able to submit that to the state, and then the county would forward fund it, but at the end of the year, we would take and get reimbursed. So we are hopeful that that will go through for Senate Bill 942. However, there's no guarantees, so I do know that we're continuously looking for grant monies to be able to pay for it.
Okay, hope so.
Me
It
too.
may not be reoccurring, what you're saying.
Well, if they do what Senate Bill 942 says, then that's a guarantee. So with, like, the grant monies, we have applied for different ones, however, we weren't awarded, because what happens is we have to get in line with all the groups to be able to do that. So,
What'd you call that bill, HB 943?
originally it was House Bill 116, now it's in the annotated, Code of Maryland under Correctional Services 9603. It's like opioid examination and treatment disorder, so we have to take and provide it. And the bill is very, very encompassing. So we have to provide the medication, we have to provide like special registered nurses to be able to administer it because of the level of narcotic that it is. We have to take and provide peer specialists. So like for the grant for RSAT, it includes the 2 nurses and the peer recovery specialist. And by this, it's a holistic approach. So you not only, when they come in, they have to be screened for behavioral health, they have to be screened for medical. We have to offer 3 formularies. We have to provide, like these grants are helping
Goodness
provide
gracious,
treatment.
that's a lot.
Yes, sir, it is. It truly is. We have to provide a peer recovery specialist, which thankfully the RSAT grant and the STOP grants, so we're able to do that. So we're very, very grateful for the grant opportunities. It would just have been nice to have been able for it to be funded totally, by the state and not have to fight for it.
And what's the bill number this year that's
Bill
going through?
this year is Senate Bill 942.
942, SB 942.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sure we'll get an update on that
Try
later.
and track that one in our track list.
Because any support would be greatly appreciated. I know we testified last week as far as the Maryland Correctional Administrators Association. The crux of it is everybody wants the monies that are coming from the opioid, so.
Okay, any other questions, anybody?
Real quick, you said they were previously covered by the opioid operational community grant.
Yes,
They ran out of money before our
we
number came
took
up.
and we applied for that, but it was not very much money at all to come back. So, but I do know that they did harm reduction, like for the behavioral health hub down at, Lexington Park. So St. Mary's County did get some of the money. However, like I said, there are so many people vying for these monies, and it's all it's all great work that's being done. So,
How many people coming in now are in need of these services? Has the number gone down any over the past several years, or is it about the same?
It's about the same, you know, because we have such a mental health crisis, and with so many coming in the jail. So like out of our population this morning, you know, we have 257 on the incarcerated count, and 188 of them are identified as having, you know, mental health. And like 31% of them are unstable. Many people are compensating with, you know, so there's a lot of dual diagnosis incarcerated individuals now.
And this bill is for 6 months?
The RSAT
This-
grant is for
this-
6 months.
This grant is for 6 months,
Yes, sir, and then
So-
we plan to apply again.
again.
But I'm hoping that maybe if Senate Bill 942 goes through, then we would. But then again, you know, whenever they enact it, is usually in October, and then usually they'll push it out a little bit. So we're continuing to look for grants to be able to pay for it.
So these funds will run out sometime in August,
The June 30th.
June 30th. Okay. All right.
Anything else?
I move to approve the FY 2025 RSAT grant award and adjustment from the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy on behalf of St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $189,091 excluding county match, along with the related budget amendment to establish budget authority using the appropriation reserve and authorize the Commissioner President and Sheriff to execute the related documents and staff to submit electronically.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you all very much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your day.
Thank you. And next up from the Sheriff's Office is fiscal year 2026 Maryland Highway Safety Grant applications, and the warden will be replaced by Captain Russell. Welcome.
Morning.
Morning.
So these highway safety grants before you are recurring. For 26, FY 26, 18,500 is requested to cover overtime and fringe for the Maryland Highway Safety, Distracted Driving, Impaired Driving, and Speed Enforcement Patrol initiatives. The amount of funding for these grants is $1,000 less than what is included in the Sheriff's FY 26 budget request, and there's no county match required. Your approval is requested for these grants.
Okay, it covers overtime and,
Fringe, the related fringe.
okay, so how much overtime are we putting towards this? I'm sorry, are you a captain or are you?
Yes.
All right, thank you, I
Captain
apologize.
Russell.
I'm sorry, I don't know the numbers on the,
That's the captain.
all right, I apologize. Captain, how much overtime you got going on this?
The majority of it is overtime. I would have to add the overtime
mean,
up
is it
for
a
the three
lot?
grants. All of it's overtime and then fringe.
Okay,
So
but
what's
the point
fringe?
is, do you have a lot of overtime tied up
Oh.
in this?
Yeah, this is all overtime money. These are special
Doesn't seem like
initiatives
much money for
that,
overtime.
It's supplemented.
and they coincide with statewide initiatives for these various speed, impaired driving, and around some holidays and other stuff that's statewide. So it's a combined effort between us, state police, and other agencies and state highway. So it's-
Well, I support slowing people down. Best you can.
I move to approve the Maryland Highway Safety Grant documents for FFY 2026 on behalf of the Sheriff's Office for the total amount of $18,500 and authorize the Commissioner President and Sheriff's Office staff to sign and submit the related documents electronically.
Second.
I have a first and second.
Discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Just a question.
Question.
It says here impaired driving. Is that like for,
the alcohol and drugs.
right, but is it like for when they set up in
Yeah,
your.
checkpoints.
Right,
Yeah,
checkpoints and things like that?
Checkpoints, saturation patrols, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Just a question that I had.
Yeah, Captain, I got a quick question on that. So, because we have this, legalized marijuana use and stuff like that, I would assume someone driving under the influence of marijuana is driving under the influence. Is that true?
Yes.
How can you tell? What do? You look them in the eye and see something's wrong with you? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, the HGN, there's other tests that can be done. You first trying to rule out the alcohol portion of it, and then we have drug recognition experts that will cue in on different signs and symptoms related to.
So you have training to figure that stuff out.
That requires some specialized training, correct?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
And they still don't have a breathalyzer type,
No.
and whoever comes up with that $1 million idea is gonna be
Billion.
$1 million.
Get one, let's get one. We better work on that. Okay, I got a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
I'll
Thank
get
you.
that as far as a captain.
That's right. Next up is from the Department of Recreation and Parks for Program Open Space Fiscal Year 2025 Grant Award. Director, Mr. Bevins, and Mr. Copsey. Welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Bevan.
Good morning. My first time get to be in front of you. Excited to be
Exactly.
here. And I couldn't have asked for a better one to come in front of you for. So Program Open Space is a grant through formula through Maryland DNR. There's two particular projects we're asking you to approve. The first is a $25,000 grant with no match that helps fund our land preservation, parks and recreation plan that's required to be done every 5 years, and a requirement of getting additional open space funds. That will not be due until 2027. And the second is for $275,000 for $275,400 with a match of $30,600 for LED lights at Chancellor's Run Regional Park. That's a 9-to-1 match of state funds. They're not always that great, but that's pretty good. We'll take 9-to-1.
That's pretty good.
Very good.
So tell me, the LED lights, that's also hopefully going to cut down our electric bill.
About 70%, and we have a plan to move throughout the county, and this is another step in that plan to convert more of the older lights that are coming to the end of their life cycle over time.
What percentage you think we have with LED versus regular?
Roy, what's your guess on that?
We probably 50-50 right now.
Okay, so this will move us closer to 60-40 or whatever yeah, so in our favor. Strongly agree with that. Now, was this something we did with conjunction through SMETCO? Because I remember, I think he's still on the board, Don DeGraves brought this to our attention a couple of years ago and has been.
We've worked with our Parks Advisory Board. It's highly recommended. It's not just the energy savings, it's also a much more improved experience for our players and
Better light.
Lights, much better lighting and things like that. We've seen it at our houses. It's night and day when you compare the old technology to the new. So we're looking forward to getting that project completely done over the next couple years.
Yeah, and we did work with SMECO on Chancellors and Lancaster, which we got a refund of $52,000 towards the bill or whatever, so.
Oh, good.
Wow.
Now tell me, you have people talk about the lights cut out at a certain time, like 9 o'clock and during the summer, and their kids are playing baseball and the fly ball's been hit and the lights go out. I mean, you always hear these extreme examples. But the question I have is, do they have control? If someone calls me up and says, Mike, the lights went off at 9 o'clock, I couldn't get hold of anybody.
The leagues have control now. We give all the league presidents have control of the lights, so they set the lights on and off themselves.
Good idea, Mr. Copsey. That is a great idea, because we'll tell them they now have control.
Yes, they do. 90% when we're working, to get everybody familiar with the.
A lot of times we hear from the parents and we don't hear from the people in charge. All right, well, I'm going to move to approve and accept the FY 2025 Program Open Space funding for the LED light retrofit project for the Fields 3 and 4 at Chancellor's Run Regional Park, RP 2503, for $275,400, and the Land Preservation, Parks and Recreation Plan, RP 2102, for $25,000, and authorize the Commissioner President to sign all related documents.
Second discussion. So a while back, there was a big push from some of the leagues that we would get these timed light turn-on switches in order to save costs. But my understanding is that's no longer needed with LEDs, that it's not an issue to turn them all on at the same time.
No, there's no saving. Once you put the LEDs in, it don't help to save. We proved through SMECO and also Moscow that staying that device wasn't needed to save money.
Good.
But with the older lights, that is needed.
It would help with the older ones, yes. The halides, but hopefully in a couple more years, we'll have all those replaced.
I'm probably showing my age on technology, but it used to be when you turned off LEDs, you couldn't turn them right back on. Can you turn them right back on?
LEDs you can, but not halogen. housing
okay,
needs
maybe
to
that,
cool
okay,
down,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
The new lights will turn off and come right back on,
Okay.
but now the old style light, gotta cool down for it to come back on.
Now, for Chancellor's Run Regional Park, which is one of our bigger parks with a lot of fields, will this complete Chancellor's Run, or is there still more lights to do there?
There's still, 2 more fields at Chancellor.
Guess
Which those lights do meet the, the criteria of the 50/30 or they meet that right now. And they're still on the warranty until like 35, I think. So we're trying to do all the older lights and get those done that's not on the warranty.
Okay.
So,
And there'll obviously be a warranty with the new lights.
yes.
Good.
So, final question. Program open space funding is always a little tricky because sometimes the plan comes to us and sometimes there's still funding left out there for program open space that we can capture. Is there still funding? There's a note in here that there's still program open space funding available after this for $724,600.
Is that our balance left? Because we usually have a balance there. Is that what that is?
I think that is projects, Roy, you might help me with this one, that are underway. So this is by year. We have to encumber it. There are opportunities that are one time for like specifically to playgrounds that are competitive that we can go after as well. This is the formula base that we're talking about today. That's for the fiscal year.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm good.
You have a motion and a second?
Everybody good?
Commissioner President?
We have a motion and a second. Everybody agree? Aye. Anybody disagree? I have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And next up is from the Department of Finance for the budget amendment to realign county personnel services for fiscal year 2025. Director Vanetta Van Cleve, along with Deputy Director Joyce
Mr. Bevan, before you leave us, just make time on your calendar for me and let me know when I can get together with you. Thank you.
Good morning,
Good
ladies.
morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We are coming to you this morning with a budget proposal quarterly throughout the year as we reconcile our actual spend rates of salaries in the various departments and divisions compared to the budgeted. We bring forth a reconciliation of that. For the second quarter through January 2nd, the amount in the realignment to be moved back to the Commissioner's Emergency Reserve is $393,618. And that, again, is through January 2nd. Slightly lower than the first quarter, but we had some realignment between the various departments. Any questions?
Okay, so you have 2 more quarters to
We do.
see this.
Now, we've been talking a lot lately about the giant bill we're going to have for snow this year. And
Correct.
last I saw, it's approaching, or it's going to be over $3 million. We talk about overtime for that snow. Will that come out of salary savings as you do realignments down the road, or will that need to come out of fund balance or Commissioner Reserve?
Currently, the Commissioner Reserve sits at 1.1 million. This current budget adjustment will bring it to 1.5 million, and correct, the snow expense is sitting at very close to 3 million. At the end of the year, we will remove what we can or fund what we can from the Commissioner Reserve, and the remaining will need to be found in other budget savings or fund balance.
Now tell me-
Right, so we do have some departments that have salary savings that they will be able to realign, outside of the actual salary adjustment.
Now tell me, what you're talking about here is the county staff, county employees. And it says in here, it is important to know that the budget amendment exclude all elected officials.
Correct.
Now, we know that there's vacancies in the elected officials. So when would they do their salary, return their salary savings? Would that be at the end of the year?
So in regards to the salary savings and sheriff's office, for example, they already are doing a budget amendment to cover their overtime costs for the snow. So some of them will be doing that, but as far as returning it, That, you look at the overall budget at the end, and it goes to fund balance if they have not spent everything.
Okay, well, I guess my point is that Board of Education does not return any fund balance. And years ago, we had to do that every year at the Board of Education. They don't do it anymore. Now, the sheriff typically does, and that's usually a pretty big number when he brings it back. So we should expect that same, what's the term? Well, and also the state's attorney. Would that person return fund balance also?
Right.
All right, good, thank you.
I have a question regarding the reconciliation on overtime, and how is that going over there? I know it might be a little bit out of the realm of this discussion here.
I'm sorry, the
There was some,
reconciliation of overtime?
Of overtime for snowstorms. As I understand, there's some manual input and for overtime requirements for payroll.
The overpayments he's
Oh,
referring to.
that has been resolved, and everything is working properly in Central Square. We had a conference call with the programmer last week and came up with a solution, so that is fine going forward, and all of that has been resolved and reconciled.
So it won't be manually entered.
No, it's just a matter of we had to do something with the coding within the system. Yep.
Okay.
I've heard from DES, there was an issue with a couple, maybe one or two people at DES with overtime. And talking with the deputy county administrator, I know a lot of it, some of it gets put in manually, and I know people, hey, payroll needs to be turned in by this day at this time, period.
Right.
Miss it by 2 minutes, and guess what, it's on you. Not you guys, but it's on the submitter. All right, thank you.
I move to approve the budget amendment decreasing salary and fringe accounts and increasing the Commissioner's Emergency Reserve account in the amount of $393,618 due to salary savings.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and next up is legislation from the Office of the County Attorney with legislative updates. Deputy County Attorney John Sterling Hauser. Welcome.
Mr. Weiskopf.
Sir.
We had an attachment on our consent agenda this morning for a letter of support for Tudor Hall. Should that have been read into the record this morning?
No, I mean, I see Mr., is it Lapierre is here from the historic, but he realizes it was consented to and agreed to.
Okay.
But if you wanted to mention what it was, I mean, you're free to.
Sure, if you want to, yeah.
Well, we did get a letter attached to, a letter of support attached to our consent agenda this morning for a capital grant for Tudor Hall restoration study. This is a no county match grant, and we have something coming up in a couple of years called 4 to 400, where we celebrate the 400th anniversary of the founding of Maryland. And I think having Tudor Hall ready and cleaned up and ready to rock for that event will be awesome. And I'm glad that we are signing this letter of support for Tudor Hall.
Commissioner Alderson, you bring up a good point. I've watched other commissioner meetings from Calvert and Charles, and what they do under consent agenda, they say what they're approving. Yeah, under consent agenda, I move to approve, and then what we're approving is the minutes of the last meeting, whatever letter it may be, whatever other item it may be, because that's one thing I think we leave out sometime. And we sometimes have disagreement. It passes 3-2 or 4-1 or something like that. So that might be something we want to,
Certainly, we can look at that.
We can add that in.
a little idea of what we're approving in consent agenda.
Certainly.
Usually Commissioner Culver's real quick with, hey, well, we got this. And I did want.
I think ideally we wouldn't have anything controversial.
Yeah,
in
oh,
the
yeah.
consent
Correct.
agenda.
We've had it.
We have,
That-
but
that's not
ideally
good.
we shouldn't.
But I think something
That
for.
would be on me by mistake.
Well,
Good.
no.
But for something like this, for,
Yeah.
that's a,
An easy
not
one.
controversial, and it's something that is important to the history of
I
the
totally
county.
Commissioners,
agree.
that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
It'll be
Something
fixed.
for information for the public.
Easy fix.
Yep.
Good.
Sorry to bite into your time, Mr. Hauser.
We're starting 6 minutes early.
we
And
go.
Good.
we know we're not doing this in a half hour, so
You only got 15 minutes.
Talk fast.
all right, commissioners, jumping into it.
Get 30 minutes there, Counselor.
Do start out with a bit of a blessing this morning. The total number of bill count is holding steady at about just over 2,500. That's where we're past the introduction date, so we weren't expecting a huge uptick in bills. We are going to keep below last year's, I think, record of 2,700 odd some bills. A few are trickling in, but for once, we have a supplemental memorandum for Monday morning that is nothing but some updates in numbers, updates in bills movement, but no actual new bills to have to add on to the update at the last minute. So that's a blessing on me and Angela. Going through our normal start where we talk about the local bills. All our bills have had at least one hearing so far, our bills being the package that was supported or requested by the commissioners directly. No fireworks or noted controversies from any of the hearings in the House. Delegate Todd Morgan, in his capacity as delegation chair, handled most of the testimony himself. A couple of the more particular bills, like Metcom and the Sheriff's Bill, he had subject matter experts from those agencies come in and testify with him, but no fireworks, nothing really to report from there. We are waiting on reports and ultimate movement. The one thing I will bring to the commissioner's attention, our Public Facilities Bond Authority bill did have its hearing in the Senate. That was unnotable. The testimony presented was that Senator Bailey asked for a report that it was favorable, not favorable with amendments, so favorable on the $71 million request. No questions or comments raised by the rest of the committee on what was probably about 2.5 minutes of testimony all in all. So that is where things stand on that bill at this moment. One update that we do have on here that is fresh as of yesterday evening, before we even had after the supplemental memo ran out, we do have a hearing date, I believe off the top of my head, March 12th. Should have written down a note on that for the public facilities bond in the House. So that will come up in about 2 weeks' time. Other bills particular to St. Mary's County, Delegate Crosby's judge bill has formally been withdrawn at this point, replaced, as we know, by the judiciary's bill that is on its way towards advancing out of the House with a favorable report by the Judiciary Committee, that being the bill that would create a Fourth Circuit Court judgeship in St. Mary's County. So that received no opposition, is looking like it's well on its way towards advancement. No movement on the local bond initiatives yet. That probably won't happen for quite some time until the budget is sorted out. We have 3 that affect projects in St. Mary's County. The request for $1 million by YMCA, or by Delegate Crosby for the YMCA, being prohibitively the largest ask. Moving on then, now on page 3 of the supplemental memo, to requests for letters of support or opposition or positions that we've received in the past 2 weeks, I think, since I was before you last. First one being a request from the Arts Council that we broke out into 2 separate requests from the St. Mary's County Arts Council, that is. The first request take-up that was brought by the Arts Council is a request for a letter of support to the governor, to other powers that be at the state legislature, asking for the General Assembly and the governor's administration to support full funding of the Maryland Arts Council. One of the budget reductions that was proposed in the governor's budget is a repeal of certain funding established by law in a statute passed, I think it was 1994. That bill, the 94 legislation, created a funding formula whereby the Maryland Arts Council would receive a certain percentage of funds every year. That funding would then be distributed by the State Arts Council to its various subsidiary arts councils throughout the state, including our county art council. Our county arts council reports that the vast majority of its operating budget spoken for comes from these block grants from the State Arts Council. So our local arts council and the State Arts Council feel that it's a existential matter for them to receive some guarantees that this funding will be guaranteed going into the future. I know they requested each of the commissioners individually consider sending in a letter of support. One commissioner brought an initiative to bring this before the entire body for a vote as the collective commissioners of St. Mary's County. A letter to that effect has been drafted and is in the packet for the commissioners' review. Commissioners, if they want to send that letter, we could invite a motion right now. The idea for that letter would be not written testimony on the Budget Reconciliation Financing Act, the BRFA. I think where we would leave that, just because the BRFA is a huge bill, we get one chance of written testimony on that one coming from, our usual login. If there is a more universal position the commissioners want to take on the BRFA, which we'll talk about later on this session, I thought keeping the letters separate would be the best, healthiest, clearest way to do that. And it's up to the
Wasn't me who asked for the letter, but I would support the letter, so whoever amongst us asked for it, maybe you can make a motion.
So, just for discussion's sake, it wasn't me either.
Doesn't make-
Very supportive of the arts, and especially locally, because we have some incredible artists of different genres locally, and they do wonderful stuff. At the same time, the state is in a structural deficit, and any funding that gets allocated one place isn't getting allocated someplace else. And in order to fund everything, it's going to require increased taxes on our citizens, or it's going to be pushing the cost down to us. So at some point, something would need to be cut somewhere. And it's not my decision what it is that gets cut. But I'm just philosophically, we're kind of in a tough spot here. If we're saying to the state, you should give full funding to this organization, but right now, to my knowledge, I haven't read the BRFA, do they have a plan for the Register of Wills office, or is that plan to have the county fund it?
I don't think there is a plan statewide at that point.
Okay.
That's the commentary all over. And just for a touching point, again, just fiscal realities are what they are. I think we put in the drafted letter of support on Thursday. I think it was the next day, or we sent it on Wednesday. I think it was the next day we were announced that Department of Legislative Services is pitching a further $1.48 million in cost shifts down to St. Mary's County. So obviously it's a tough year. Everybody knows that.
Well, it's not done till it's done.
Agree.
I mean, up that legislative session Thursday night, I did speak with several all the delegates were there, and there were some few others I never knew before I was introduced to. And the plan, and well, I shouldn't say the plan is, well, their feelings is that there's no plan yet, that it's all up in the air, that what may come out of the legislator could be totally different than what the governor wants. Now, it would be unusual for a governor to veto a governor of the same party as the majority of the legislature to veto that budget. I mean, that happened under Hogan, but I don't know. So I just think this whole budget thing in Annapolis is really up in the air. Now, I was told there will be some blended form of higher fees in there, but I guess there's nothing wrong with sending a letter.
There's nothing wrong with it. I just think it's almost hypocritical for us to ask the state to spend more money in one place when we're asking them not to put more charges down on us. So I would almost advocate for just not taking a position on this particular issue right now.
Well, some must have been one of the three you guys put this thing together. Or you said it came from a commissioner, right? A letter, or maybe I thought someone said there was a letter generated by a commissioner.
Truthfully, we if I remember and perhaps I am trying to recollect now. My recollection is that our local executive director of the Arts Council, I think Ms. Glauner, sent a letter to each commissioner individually.
That's in the
Each
packet here.
commissioner received it. And I remember receiving direction from one commissioner.
All right, whatever.
I cannot remember it. I cannot
Sounds
remember
like we're not
exactly
ready.
right
When's this
now.
thing go for hearing?
So, BRFA is set for a hearing on the 28th. We know that the BRFA of this month, we know.
On Friday?
Yeah, this Friday. We're not sending in, the idea is I wrote the letter, would not be to send in written testimony on that bill, just a letter to send up for folks' consideration. We know that the hearing will occur on the 28th. We know nothing's being decided on the BRFA or the budget that day, and that this is going to be weeks at least of continued work on the General Assembly's point.
Then is the feeling we're not ready to send a letter?
I'd agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. So we wait, we've got time.
But I am good with the letter for their second request here.
The second request is easier. Second request doesn't have a dollar sign attached to it.
Yeah.
So it's taking the direction then that we are going to hold for the moment any opining on the budget and what funding priorities should be. The second component of the Arts Council's request is for legislation, or is for a letter of support on one specific bill, HB 961/SB 1006, Commission Public Art Artist Rights. And this is a mercifully short bill, about 2 pages, maybe 4 or 5 whole lines of text that has to be read. What it does is there is a federal law called the Visual Artist Rights Act, the VARA. VARA is probably about, I think, 25 years old, give or take. It protects certain quote-unquote moral rights of the artist. That's apparently the word you use for them. And moral arts are among them: an artist's right to control the use of his work, the right to control his identity, the right to control the artist's name for being attached to some piece of art he did not create. In other words, federal protections that allow an artist to, I guess, stand up for the integrity or assert some sort of authorial control of the use and deployment of his or her commissioned art. My understanding of the federal VARA is that that is a blanket restriction, but it can be waived by the artist if the artist so chooses. And apparently there is a phenomenon out there where state-commissioned art, mural on the side of a building, whatever have you, something that a government pays an artist to go out and commit or produce, commissions them to do, that oftentimes they will include waivers of those VARA provisions. And what this legislation would do is prohibit any waiver of VARA rights an artist may have under this federal legislation in any state-sponsored, state-commissioned, state-funded, in whole or in part, directly or indirectly, art project that artist might be commissioned to make.
Has that been an issue for us anywhere?
I don't know, Commissioner.
Leonardtown does it. We've seen it down in Lexington Park.
I joke that I'm out of my depth talking about the budget, that I'm out of my depth talking about money. I am very out of my depth talking about art. I'm not aware of a specific project.
Does this have anything to do with like AI or?
VARA predates AI. My gloss of VARA by about, 20 years, I want to say, before we were all even thinking about AI. There's something called the Berne Convention, which is some, I'm guessing, UN-sponsored, universal right. The VARA was passed because we are a signatory to the Berne Convention protecting these quote-unquote moral rights of artists. We give a carve-out, or the federal government gave a carve-out in the VARA for you can waive your VARA rights if you want. We're simply saying that if you have state money going into your project, you cannot require an artist to waive these rights, which again, my read of them seem to relate mostly to your ability to control your honor, reputation, integrity, the things you stand for as an artist, and make sure that your name or the art you make isn't used in a way that you would disapprove of. And visual arts too. I think it's visual arts only. I think that, the commissioners can still use to the extent that royalty don't matter in whoever's music you want at your rallies. Because I think that's a talking point every now and again, but that is not implicated by this legislation or the federal law.
So the operative word in this bill is the requiring part of it, correct, as opposed to optional?
Correct. So again, if this bill passes, whatever next art the commissioners of St. Mary's County are going to commission, we cannot force an artist to waive their VARA rights if we ever did before.
And if we ever want to use it in, I don't know, on an advertisement or anything like that, then we would, if they haven't signed off on it, then we would have to contact them and get their express permission to do so.
My understanding, correct, is that author, if we want to use it in a way that author does not agree with or does not comport with what that author says to stand for, whatever rights we may have to the copyright to prevent further dissemination of it, we would not be able to use it in a way that we'd give the artist a veto, in so many words, over future use of it, I think.
For lack of a better word, my concern here is, I know when we purchase things for the federal government, they bought it. It's federal funds. They own it.
Yeah.
And they own all rights in perpetuity to it.
Right. And we would...
If the artist is, obviously, St. Mary's County government is commissioning the work. They're selling us the artwork. We should own it and be able to use it however.
That's the thought. I mean, whatever the intentions of it, it is an abrogation of certain rights we would otherwise be able to insist upon in an award of publicly commissioned art.
We're making rocket science out of it.
Yeah.
And this is just as simple as we've had an issue and we're trying to correct something. I always believe anything you do up there is to correct something that's not working. Is something not working in regard to this?
And that I don't know of. I don't know of a controversy. I don't know of why they bring it this year, or if
I'd
it's
say
just,
I'm not in support of, or,
I would agree.
I mean, what the heck? Unless someone can tell me
There's a problem.
it's impacted something that needs to be fixed. This is what I think's partially wrong with Annapolis. They fix too many things that don't need to be fixed.
I agree with that.
Enough of that.
So we just pass on this one.
Yeah.
All right.
I can do
Unless
the-
they can come back with some more detail.
I mean, I think a lot of this goes to further down the road, make sure that the artist is duly compensated also for their art as it
Well,
gets.
let them come back
as it
and
gets
tell us
disseminated.
what they're trying to fix.
So what we can do is reach out to Ms. Glauner, state that, the commissioners did not vote yes or no, but wanted further information. I was unable to speak to it. That can you tell us what is the problem, or why is this being asked for? We can bring this back next week, 2 weeks, whenever we would get that response. Moving on then to the next request for a letter of support, in this case from Commissioner Alderson on HB 885/SB 625, public safety, police accountability, investigation records relating to unfounded and exonerated complaints. Commissioners will remember that about 3 years ago, sweeping legislation creating our police accountability boards and administrative charging committees was passed by the state of Maryland. We're required to set up an administrative charging committee. That administrative charging committee hears certain complaints of alleged police misconduct between members of the police and members of the general public, that if you deprive a citizen of their constitutional right, if a police officer violates state law, and if a police officer commits a violation of local agency policy in that act, that whatever disciplinary charges or whatever recommendations for discipline are made as a result of that investigation has to be reviewed and come through with the Civilian Administrative Charging Committee. When the Administrative Charging Committee receives the investigative file of these alleged acts of police misconduct, they review the file and they have 4 ways they can decide to come out on the case. They can either decide that the allegations can be sustained, in which case they would make a finding that the officer should be administratively charged and make a recommendation of discipline in accordance with that finding of being administratively charged. That would fit the uniform statewide matrix on disciplinary outcomes. If the decision is that the charges or the allegations cannot be sustained, there are 3 ways of, for lack of a better word, acquittal the ACC could come out on. Exonerated, which means that the officer's conduct was reviewed and the ACC has come to an opinion that the officer acted in complete accordance with the law or agency policy. Unfounded, which means that the allegations, there's not sufficient facts to sustain any allegation. Or not administratively charged, which is not further out defined, but it's for those circumstances where you can't fit into unfounded or exonerated, but at the same time, you don't fit the criteria for administratively charged either. What this law would do is that for charges where an officer allegations are found to be unfounded or exonerated by the Administrative Charging Committee, that disciplinary record would be expunged from the officer's permanent disciplinary record. The ACC opinion would then not be, expungement would mean that there would be no public records of the investigation or the finding. As it is right now, even if the ACC makes a determination of unfounded and exonerated, that letter goes to the sheriff's office, that letter goes to the complainant, that letter remains publicly available through our board docs, and among our records, it's redacted to save proper names and first names, but otherwise, the record exists, and it certainly exists in the officer's disciplinary record.
Okay. County Administrator, I remember recently we got a report back from our Police Accountability Board. I remember perusing it. I didn't see, was that confidential information to start with? Is there
The annual report,
Yes.
It is not.
the annual
Okay,
report is
good.
not.
My point is, I didn't remember anything jumping out at there that caught my attention. Does this apply? I know, Commissioner Alderson, you're talking about supporting this letter, and I'm not.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to it. Is it fixing something in St. Mary's County we've had?
I have the numbers handy on that, if you
You have
don't
what
mind,
now?
Commissioner. I have the numbers on how many cases we've seen and how many cases have seen an unfounding or exonerated finding, if you don't
How
mind
many
me
you got?
butting in. So in the life of our ACC, we have seen a total of 16 cases so far involving, I think, 23 separate officers. In those cases, many of them have multiple charges beyond, the actual complaint.
Yeah, I
that
saw that,
Got
yeah.
it. You can often find technical charges if
Would
the
any
nexus gets
stick
it.
out to you as being egregious?
We have about half of those cases, just under 7 of the 16, have seen at least one of the charges unfounded or exonerated. The other thing we do, because there's no administrative difference between unfounded, exonerated, or not administratively charged, for lack of a better word, we're not excruciatingly detailed when our ACC goes in and makes the determination, should it be unfounded, should it be exonerated, should it be not administratively charged. We explain the facts, come out to a finding. I would expect if there's actually a reason to look at unfounded or exonerated, that number would be higher, but about half of the cases right now would be implicated in some way.
All right.
I think we've seen over the past, decade, it's policing is becoming a tougher and tougher profession. And this bill helps to support police officers so that they aren't unfairly held to a standard that's not realistic. And just
Well, to me, I see it like this, and I was talking to Sheriff Hall about this, is we have the body-worn cameras, and the body-worn camera will show the evidence, hey, this officer did not do anything wrong, but the charges will still be there if someone makes it, and if they're unfounded, it stays in their fit rep for their entire career, correct?
Used to.
And
So this allows expungement.
So yeah, get it out of there. That way you don't harm them in the long run. If someone comes up with the unfounded, hey, say he pulled me over for a taillight. There was no taillight wrong with it, whatever. It shouldn't be a detriment to the officer's ability to
agree.
Advance. in his
I
career.
think, I can second a motion if you want to make one, just send a letter.
Yeah.
And I think Mako supports this.
Okay, that's good. So it's 885, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I move to submit a letter of support for House Bill 885, Senate Bill 625, and authorize Commissioner President to sign any required documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, the next two bills, Commissioner. The requests for letters of opposition come from Delegate Todd Morgan in his capacity as delegation chair and sitting on the Environment and Transportation Committee in the House, where he saw these two bills. First one up, HB 20 SB 198, changes to the Consolidated Transportation Program. Commissioners may remember we mentioned this. This is a bill we tracked. This is a bill that we looked at. The crux of this one, I think where Delegate Morgan's opposition comes from, is his belief that as presently written, the scoring matrix that they would force the Department of Transportation to adopt when it comes to ranking and prioritizing future CTP projects, the criteria would be weighted to favor larger, more densely populated jurisdictions over rural, more sparsely densely populated jurisdictions. Understanding is that Mako supports with amendments, that those amendments are roughly in line with the criticism just addressed, and that the criteria should be revisited for a more balanced approach that does not disproportionately impact or direct funding away from your rural localities.
No problem me supporting this one. I've always said whenever they prioritize, they did that several years ago.
Yep.
And that bridge got knocked from number 8 or whatever, number 50.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, well, I mean,
And when you see Mako support with amendment, if they don't get the amendments in this, they will not support it.
Right.
what's the amendment?
To make it more fair.
Make it more fair.
Yeah.
Is their amendment, but if they do not get it in the bill, they oppose it.
Well, how would we say our motion with Mako's amendments?
We don't, do you have any?
We could do either a support with Mako's amendments or I think a flat letter of opposition is what Delegate Morgan requested. I think a letter of support with the amendments outlined by Mako would work as well.
but,
It's a little 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I think maybe a letter of opposition as
straight up
written.
opposition.
I am too. I move to submit a letter of opposition for HB 20 SB 198 and authorize Commissioner President to sign all related documents,
Second. Quick question, Mr. Hauser.
required documents.
You stated initially that this comes from Delegate Morgan in his capacity as delegation chair. does that mean our full delegation is opposed to this, or is it just individually?
I
from
think it was
delegates?
just, when I said that, what I was trying to communicate there, and I could have done this more clearly, Delegate Todd Morgan of all the delegates sits on the committee, actually will text me real time and do it. He reached out. I don't know where the rest of the delegation stands on it. I think it's just that Todd Morgan feels that as delegation chair, it's incumbent to Marshall. He should be the one to make the request to the commissioners or Marshall positions.
This,
I
this conversation
agree.
came up recently within the past 2 years. Because we talked about scoring since I've been on this board.
I was just
No, no, no,
curious.
But we had something like that happen before,
Okay.
and it changed. Well, you may remember, because Delegate Crosby said, get the bridge as our number one priority
Yeah.
off, and put the Great Mills Route 5
Yep.
intersection as a number one.
Well, that's why I was asking, because is Delegate Crosby going to oppose this, or will this impact the Great Mills intersection, which has been one of his biggest initiatives?
As soon as you said it, Commissioner, I went there. I do not know Delegate Crosby's position on the bill.
Well, I'm still willing to.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So you got a motion and a second?
Motion seconds there.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to oppose. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You got it.
And then I think what we're going to do, just with the conversation heard, we will make one slight change to the draft letter just to state that we oppose the legislation as written. And I think that covers the capacity for Mako's amendments.
Okay, accept your amendment to my motion. I'm sorry.
Moving on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Moving on, HB 80, I'm at or just coming up on the 30 minutes there as I look up. At HB 84/SB 395, the second of the bills that Delegate Morgan would like a position on, the Transportation and Climate Alignment Act of 2025. My short gloss on that is that any major project by the Maryland Department of Transportation would have to go through a scoring and assessment for impacts on climate change, resiliency, burdens placed on overburdens or disproportionately impacted communities. And again, the same general theme as before. Delegate Morgan believes that this bill, if passed, would disproportionately affect or impact projects that would go into rural counties. I do not believe Mako has a formal position on the bill.
Well, I move to submit a letter of opposition for HB 84/SB 395 and to authorize Commissioner President to sign any required documents.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Mr. Hauser, could we talk about HB 1036, SB 391?
Where's that at?
That
Yes,
is-
Track
that's
bills?
the solar siting bill. Under track bills, page 5 at the bottom, as we,
Okay, well, he was getting to that, right?
Oh,
yeah. Yep.
I
So,
didn't want him to feel like he was held to that 30-minute mark.
Done here.
I know I'm not held to the number I put on that agenda list. I don't think we've met it once yet. Under the bills that the commissioners asked to be brought back or talk about, started off with HB 352, SB 321, Budget Reconciliation Financing Act, the BRFA. My stand-in for the entire budget and just a chance to check in what we've learned where we are right now. Hearings on the budget bills are this Friday, the 28th. The major developments since then, we already touched on it earlier. There is no comprehensive plan yet. Nobody knows what really the final product is even close to looking like. What we have heard in the 2 weeks since, Senator Guy Gazzone, the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee in our Budget and Taxation Committee in the Senate, has come out publicly and said he has given a number. He thinks there will be a further $500 million in cuts. Did not further specify on whether he means cuts in terms of no programming or cuts to the state budget that will be transferred back down to the counties, just that there would be $500 million in cuts. One discrete data point we got, I believe last Thursday morning, the Department of Legislative Services is supporting or asking the General Assembly to consider a further readjustment, a pickup of the state's contributions to the teacher pension fund. Previously, they were proposing a 50-50 split that would come out to right about $1.5 million that the counties would just be invoiced to. Department of Legislative Services is now pitching a 100% pickup by the counties.
So the $3 million.
So take that 1.5 and multiply it by 2. And that's, again, just a straight invoice to St. Mary's County. And that $1.5 million is not shared statewide. That is the cost to St. Mary's County. In general, where that's setting up for the budget, there will be hearings this week. The Senate and House leadership have already announced that they are going to move their internal budget calendars back by 6 days, so they're taking another week before they bring forward, I think, anything approaching a comprehensive draft of a plan. There is open talk in Annapolis right now that a special session will likely be required to sort out the budget. The last day for a special session on the calendar is to have it concluded by May 7th, 30-day extension on sine die, which would normally fall on April 7th. So it is possible the state budget will not be adopted until sometime in April, if that talk
Yeah, I
rings
had
true.
heard that. Did I hear it from you? Anyway, I had heard it when I was up there at that reception.
I asked Delegate Todd Morgan as
That's
soon
right.
as I walked into the
That's
door.
right, you were the one.
Because he said something along the lines of like, you can scream at the budget all you want, we can't do anything about it, we're working on it. I'm like, I get it, just, can you get it done? He's like, and he did say that he would probably have to go to special session.
Well, I
to
think the
finish.
key there, though, is for us to finish our budget.
Oh, yeah,
We have to understand the state's
exactly.
budget, or the impacts of it on us.
Yep.
So
All right.
that is the update on the
I'm sorry,
BRFA.
you said the date for that, if they had a special session, it'd have to be done by,
May 7th. It's an
7th.
extra 30 days by a special session. I think the rule on special sessions is that upon a joint presentation or petition signed or accepted by half of each house, the governor must extend for a special session through to May 7th.
well, we would have budget work sessions on the 6th and 13th of May, so if we had to deal with whatever they come up with, at least we'd have time.
Yeah,
Hopefully. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, moving on from the BRFA to a bill we talked about on the 11th and were directed to bring back for further discussion today. HB 1036, SB 391, Public Utilities, Generating Stations, Generation and Siting. When people talk about the solar siting bill, this is the bill, and we mentioned it in broad strokes on Tuesday. The commissioners wanted us to do a little bit more work, talk about it more comprehensively on this date. What this bill does is for about 5-6 years, solar siting in St. Mary's in Maryland has been controlled by an outcome in a court case that it's Perennial Solar versus the Frederick County. And in short of it, Frederick County tries to create some local restrictions on solar siting. The solar provider appeals decisions made at the local level, gets all the way up to Maryland's Court of Appeals, now Maryland Supreme Court. Maryland Supreme Court issues a ruling that says the state of Maryland has enacted at the state level a comprehensive system through the Public Service Commission to deal with the regulation, permitting, and siting of large-scale, more than 2 megawatts, solar farms, and that any local action is preempted. What this bill does would codify and then give a little bit more clarity to that situation and clamp down on the counties to whatever extent we had any argument to make under that case law, does away with it for good by statute, and also something new it does is makes great changes to local taxation on these facilities. So there are two main components of the bill in terms of its effects on local government. First are the rules that would create on solar siting. And what it would do is that if you have a 2 megawatt or more solar farm, and takes to get 1 megawatt, internet tells me, between 4 and 10 acres. Once you go above that number, a solar farm has to create a buffer between, under this legislation, would have to create a buffer, a forested vegetated buffer of 150 feet between the solar farm and any occupied domicile not affiliated with the project. So occupied residence, if you don't have an occupied residence on that part of your property, you only have to provide a 50-foot buffer. It has to be vegetated. You cannot require a berm. I believe there's a fencing requirement in there too, and it must be non-barbed wire. If you meet those buffer yard requirements, you get your certificate of public necessity. The state or the county must approve your application. They do the exact same thing for solar generating that they do for capacitors, batteries, solar kind of repositories, where you're going to do your energy storage as well. Same buffer yard requirements, same line that if those minimum requirements are met, we as a county must permit it.
Okay, now, so it becomes a state requirement on these buffering and whatnot you're talking about. The siting, is that still a Public Service Commission?
Still a Public Service Commission. We
So
cannot.
The county does not have oversight over siting.
Yep, there's no
Overriding
zoning.
the
There,
county.
there is essentially a floating zone that says by application of state law, solar projects can go anywhere that the certificate of public necessity says they can.
Well, when you put those buffering in, that does help that a little bit. I still know this group's been working on this site up here in Mechanicsville, 610-acre site up there. It used to be the old Thiokol munitions site. And that's been going on for a long time. They paused it because of the new president's, the green initiatives might go away, which is, it is what it is. But the main thing has been when the inflation got out of hand last year, the cost of their products, their stuff really skyrocketed. So the key gets to be is, are we hurt by this?
The zoning aspect is a codification of, again, that case law. Current law right now, if this bill, by some, surprising act, would just go away completely. They drop it, doesn't exist. We'd be left in an environment where they say that the Certificate of Public Necessity process requires Public Service Commission consult the opinion of the local government, and that they quote-unquote consider that opinion and the application of its local zoning laws, but are not bound by it at all. And to satisfy that,
Commissioner Colvin? I know
So
you
the
asked-
phrase that you consistently hear in our MACO meetings, especially the rural county meetings, is the camel's nose under the tent. And this is just one more instance where even if St. Mary's County isn't directly, immediately impacted by it, other counties are, and we need to protect local autonomy as
Yes.
much as possible.
That's what concerns me the most about
And,
this.
and from what at least what it sounds like, this is probably the bill that MACO is coming out strongest against. There's talk of them driving a tractor or
Yes.
two through
Combine.
Annapolis or Combine,
Combine,
and
yeah.
just
That's
there's
on the
going to be
28th and
quite a
here on
bit of
28th.
opposition to this from the counties.
Eastern Shores counties are in pretty open revolt right now. They haven't been quiet about it. They're reading it because, again, the reason agricultural land is usually flat, it's usually cleared already because it's been farmlands, it's cheap because it's out in rural environments and doesn't have the acquisition costs that,
Property's
40
less
acres in
expensive over there
Montgomery
than
County
over
would.
here, that type
Right.
of thing, all that, yeah.
Well, number two, what this bill does to us. Forget about zoning for a moment. Think of it what we will. There's a clear hurt to a county's bottom line because the other thing in terms of local property taxes this bill does is exempts in its entirety a solar facility from paying your property tax or any other local impositions and replaces that with a $5,000 payment in lieu of taxation for every 1 megawatt, 2 megawatts you are going to create. And that's
That doesn't
I don't
sound
like
much.
that.
joke. That is a shaving
joke.
on
It's a joke.
the revenues we would generate from
That would be it, yeah.
that bill.
All right, well, what's the sense here? What was your thoughts,
I want to
Commissioner?
do a letter of opposition.
Straight up letter of opposition.
Yep.
Because this is what's gonna, it's gonna go the same route as, facilities.
I get it.
The
In the
state's gonna
interest of-
say, and I don't
Forward,
like
make
the,
a- Make a motion?
I
I
definitely
move
don't like the
to-
fact of the state trying to take our local control away from us for our zoning.
I get it, I get it.
I move to submit a letter of opposition for HB 1036, SB 391, and authorize the Commissioner President to sign any required documents.
Second.
I have a first and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Ayes have it.
I will note, Commissioners, that Jamie Raley, prominent St. Mary's County local, is the president of the Maryland Farm Bureau, and he approached me the other day and asked that we oppose this too. I probably should have led with that, but
Yeah. The opposition was there.
yeah.
No doubt about that, there's a lot of opposition to him.
Yeah.
Especially from the Eastern Shore.
Seeking further direction, Commissioners. The hearing on this bill, both House and Senate, is scheduled for this Friday.
This
Do
Friday, right,
Commissioners have
right.
any interest in us providing oral testimony? And do you have any interest in us revisiting our standard letter of opposition? We post legislation, think it would be, not behoove the interests of the county. For something more detailed and specific to this bill, we're happy to provide either service, but
I think standard letter's fine, but have Bruce, if he's willing to
Yeah, get her
testify.
$15,000.
Oppose it.
Have them hand deliver it.
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
All right, then, Commissioners, that is the other bill that the Commissioners asked to bring back, and this will be the last one to talk about, HB 1364/SB 894, modifications to the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
What page, John?
We are on page 6, middle of the page.
Oh, okay.
talked about this one at a little bit of length back on the 11th. The Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund is one of the funds created by the Cannabis Reform Act, the legalization bill that took us into our recreational regulatory environment. 35% of all the sales tax proceeds from retail cannabis sales are sent to the statewide Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. That fund then makes distributions to the county according to how much that county, what percentage of cannabis distribution charges that county saw in about the 20-year period between the mid-2000s to full legalization of recreational cannabis. The idea behind this fund is that it was going to be investments and grants from the fund were going to be made by local counties to overburdened or impacted communities that were hit hardest, hit most affected by the war on drugs, by these cannabis distribution charges. By law, the actual way they express that in the statute, Commissioners St. Mary's can expend their share of the CRRF funds that they receive in one of two environments, either quote-unquote low-income neighborhoods or disproportionately impacted areas. Disproportionately impacted areas further defined to mean a zip code in this case, that any zip code where the average or the total number of cannabis possession charges of folks living or residing in that zip code were greater than were more than 150% of the statewide average.
Okay, and that came down to Lexington Park.
That in St. Mary's County, we have one eligible zip code. That was determined by the Office of Social Equity, which is a sub-agency within the Maryland Cannabis Administration that administers the CRF or issues guidance on the CRF. They work with the judiciary, crunch the numbers. The only zip code in St. Mary's County that satisfies that criteria.
Talked about other impacted areas. I know Commissioner Alderson's concerned about an area out in the 7th District. Would that fit under this?
There is no further definition of low-income area or low-income community. So again, as long as we can plausibly and reasonably say that it fits a reasonable definition of a low-income area, we could. That's existing law.
But who would have to approve that if we were to say that?
That'd be local control, wouldn't it?
Local control right now. How it would work is that office.
Have to worry about someone saying, no, you can't do it.
We do not have to go to the Office of Social Equity and ask them to rubber stamp or sign off or bless any grants we make right now. We just have to make sure that any grants we make under current law are in compliance with state law. If they think we are erring and acting outside state law, they would have to resort to any of the legal means they have to do that. But there is no further definition of low-income area.
So we would want the comptroller to continue to monitor this or regulate this versus this social equity, Office of Social Equity.
Right. So what this law does is, given their statewide confusion, given that the law as written is extremely broad and generous in the allowances and the latitude it gives to its local counties to make funding decisions, the Office of Social Equity has proposed clarifications and what they would call refinements to the law that would narrow its focus. They'd say that if you're going to go into low-income areas, we think a benefit means, these 5 or 6 areas. The Office of Social Equity, rather than the comptroller, would adopt or administer the program.
Who is the Office of Social Equity? Who are those people?
Right now, it is a subunit of the Maryland Cannabis Authority.
I mean, is it like the attorney for
It's an
Prince
appointee,
George's
but-
County? I mean, who is it?
I don't know professional backgrounds. I've had 2 dealings with them. It's a fairly low-staffed,
Is it like
but they're
20 people, 100 people?
I would doubt it's even 20 people. I would think you're probably talking 10 or less the way they're administering this right
That's a pretty
now.
narrow group of the population
Right.
determining what goes. I think the comptroller's a better.
Well, there's more to this bill, if I'm not mistaken. I read it in depth Saturday night and early Sunday morning.
I read it during the day. I'm not that good at it.
I was a monitor at Warm at Holy Angels, so I had time. I had 4 hours.
Good for you. God bless you.
So I was going at it and made 2 pages of notes, and I'm not going to bore everybody with all the notes. But I think the bill would require for the counties to stand up a committee. If I'm incorrect, please.
I thought I read it too, but I thought it
Like
said,
Anne Arundel County set theirs up. There's 13 members on this committee on deciding where this money goes. So the county gets the money, then we have to tell this committee, hey, we have this much money. How should we disperse this money? They make a recommendation. They send it to OSC. OSC says yes or no, and then it comes back. And that comes back to, one, locally, we know where the money needs to go. I don't need the Office of Social Equity telling me where our money needs to go to the community.
Well, there should be some type of, what's the term, certification of those results. I mean, in the ideal world, just like picking a hypothetical, that's the term, situation, I could see someone like the CDC doing this for Lexington Park, because that's primarily what they do. And if this money were to go towards the passive park to expand the garden down there, the private garden plots, or if it was to go to the Pastor Bell, I hate to pick him up individually, but the work he does there on Midway Drive, or the Church of Ascension, what all they do with those food pantries, or, I mean, it just seems like if we're gonna limit it to 20653, we need somebody in 20653
To monitor it.
that understands it and recommends it. You know, let's people, because I know you're the commissioner, Commissioner Ostro, but I don't think it would be it seems like it would be a better use of.
Well, that's what you're right, that's what the CDC does, and that's what they're there for, largely.
Well, here's the thing about that. As far as, I know that I'm not the only commissioner who's ever said this, or ever, probably won't be the last, that every extra nickel that the county gets towards aid for anybody doesn't necessarily have to go to 20653. The
Well,
county,
that's what this legislation says.
or that's where the
All right,
low-income areas. And that leaves, that's up to us as a county to figure out how to do that.
Look, I don't disagree with you. I just think, or did you just say it says 20653 or it doesn't?
Though, two buckets or two eligible recipients, low-income neighborhoods, which could be anything that we want to call
That could
low-
be something
anywhere.
this
That could
board
be
of
anywhere.
commissioners would decide.
But if we're going to go in on the other half, or the other eligible area that OSC certainly would, I think, like to see things directed to, are these quote-unquote disproportionately impacted areas, which has been defined by the criteria in the original law. Zip code 20653 is the only area that fits it.
All right, well, see, that makes it tough, Commissioner, because, well, anyway, what are we looking for here? A letter of opposition or a letter of?
This was brought back to the commissioners at Murals just to further explore, and we are happy to take any position on it, whatever action the commissioners would like us to.
Well, I guess my sense is what's there, I'm sorry to keep.
Okay, good.
My sense there is what's actually available is $1,204,000 so many dollars, correct?
Correct. That's the number of CRRF funds we have received
Because
to
I remember
date.
we talked about when we were looking for snow removal money. And the second part gets to be is it's restricted to this particular area.
Right.
So it seems like we ought to focus and see if that particular area would use all that money. Now, I understand what you say about Longview Village, Longview Beach, that area. I drove down there.
Yeah.
I mean, the only issue I have with Longview, this is not enough money to fix what's going on down
I get
there.
that.
But all those private roads. But again, I want to use the money. I don't want it sitting somewhere unused when we have actual needs in the Lexington Park area that could use it. So I'm not trying to get away from what we're talking about outside of 20653.
So I think that's a different discussion
Yeah.
versus this legislation. Like, we can have a thorough discussion about where we should use the money, but I think that ultimately comes to our board to decide that, hopefully not this Office of Social Equity.
Well, we're running long now.
My two biggest bones of contention with this particularly is the requirement for us to stand up a commission. In Anne Arundel County, 13 people, I think it's 8 pages long to set up the commission. And they had to have lawyers and doctors and.
What do you want to leave it to us?
Yes.
Hartford County has a much better model that suits us better, where they have we're told, and then we solicit, hey, we have this much money. If you qualify for this, give us a proposal, and we distribute. Much simpler, much less bureaucracy. Throw the OSC in there, it's another layer of bureaucracy, that's more administrative costs,
All right.
and it's gonna get taken
So it's
from
just
us.
dispersing.
Well, I mean, let's move on in the interest of moving on.
Okay.
So what do you want here? Is anything at all, or when's this going to be?
It's up to the commissioners. If you would like us to take a position, we're happy, or we can just keep monitoring this and see if it passes.
When's it going to go for hearing?
Tomorrow in the House, March 6th in the Senate.
All
And
right,
again,
well, I move to submit a letter of opposition for HB 1364, SB 894, and authorize the Commissioner President to sign any related, or any required documents.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
All right. Last thing, Commissioners, page 7. Got an email from the St. Mary's County Chamber of Commerce. They have taken position on about 4 bills. Repeated that or attached that email in full to the Commissioners so you could see what the Chamber is up to, what they think is of significance. And that is all I have for you this morning.
Well, that was short and sweet. Thank you. A little longer than you thought, but
Very good, John. Thank you very much.
All right, Commissioners, I will see you next week.
Thank
So
you,
you're
Mr.
already
Al.
looking forward to that.
That is all from the.
I know, I didn't have my usual pep, energy, excitement in that little send-off there. I promise you it's there.
It's all there. You did a good job, John. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, Commissioners.
Okay, we're going right into Commissioner time. We'll start with Commissioner Hewitt this time.
oh, goodness. Well, thank you. So, Sunday, my wife and I have been going to this Cosmic Symphony down at St. Mary's College. I tell you, it was a wonderful, if you haven't heard about it or haven't been, you need to go. They do a wonderful job. They have one more concert this year. It's in April, I think. And,
27th.
April 7th, yeah.
27.
27th? Sorry, Commissioner Colvin's been a little bit more involved than I have. But I have to say, I was approached by the President, Karen Roberts, and I have really enjoyed it. You're seeing high-level talent. I mean, there's so many people who like to play an instrument in St. Mary's County, and they get together in this symphony, and it is a really quality experience. So anybody who has the opportunity to do that, please go. There was a young lady, 17 years old, who sang at this one. I mean, she was just wonderful. It sometimes just blows you away at the quality of what people can do, that it's just a hobby of theirs. It's just an interest that they have. And I got to say, I was really impressed. So please, if you see Cosmic Symphony, it's free. It's down. This one had over 500 people attend. It was not hard to find a seat because they have a big auditorium, that Dodge Auditorium, but it was really nice. Went to that Southern Maryland Legislative Reception last week up in Annapolis at the Graduate Hotel put on by the Tri-County Council. It's always a great opportunity to hear from different people about different ideas that are going on around the state and kind of synergize, that's the term. And I have to say that I did have good interactions with a group that has to do with this Berkshire Hathaway Cove Point LNG plant in Calvert County. And they talked about opportunities for them to get involved in St. Mary's County. And I said, well, we're going to pull that thread. Who knows where it goes? The key gets to be it's an opportunity to do that. Also heard from a lot of the different delegates and representatives of senators, state and national. Mr. Roderick Lewis, who is now with United States Senator Van Hollen's office, told me that we need to have our application in by March 8th for the earmark that Senator Van Hollen and new Senator also Brooks will support, along with our Congressman Steny Hoyer. He said he sees the potential, let me use that word, potential, for $500,000 more on top of the $850,000 they got last year. That's good news. It's good time to work with and synergize with other people who can help us. Today we have 2 budget work sessions. We had to cancel the last one because of the snowstorm. The first one's on the CIP. We know that the bond authority is going to be reduced by $15 million by the legislature, by our delegation, and hopefully that'll get passed. But we need to make corrections or adjustments to projects we're doing. This commissioner believes maybe we've approved things too fast, and we need to push some things out because we can't build them as fast as we're approving them. But please, tune in to the budget work sessions if you can. Lastly, it feels like spring is starting to come out. Driving home from church yesterday, I noticed, or let me be honest with you, my wife pointed out to me, the crocuses are coming up. Now, I guess I know what a crocus is. I mean, it's like this thing that pops up in this time of year. But the good news is, it's popping up. So maybe this cold weather's over with, and we're on to some good weather. Enjoy the spring weather. Thank you.
All right, so I am going to echo Commissioner Hewitt's comments about the Cosmic Symphony. They just do a phenomenal job, and they do just beautiful, beautiful music. They had their third concert of their yearly series. They do 4 concerts a year this past weekend. If you've never been down to St. Mary's College's Dodge Performing Arts Center, it is a beautiful venue. It is a great home for them, and their concerts are there Sunday afternoon. When they are in St. Mary's County, they do a Saturday concert over in Calvert County, and their next concert is April 27th. So I'm going to take Commissioner Hewitt's comments a step further and challenge the other commissioners to come on down to the 1st Commissioner District April 27th and come to that concert, because it is phenomenal. It's going to be entitled A Night on Broadway, and they're going to have the Newtown Players there singing some wonderful Broadway show, tunes, so it's going to be great. This past concert had Hunter Martin, who's the band director at Leonardtown High School, was a guest conductor for one of the numbers. He did a great job. And Eliana Tyson, the young artist, she gorgeous singing. It was absolutely wonderful. So great time, beautiful music. Friday evening, I was able to attend the annual Soil Conservation Awards banquet. They were presenting the Cooperator of the Year award to my friends John and Roberta Sola down in Park Hall for their Rolling Stone Farm. They have a small cattle farm where they raise beef, and it's they do sustainable practices, and they very deserving of that award. So it was a great time. And this Friday coming up, the Lexington Park Volunteer Rescue Squad is having their spaghetti dinner, and I will tell you, if you're not aware of this, Chief Hicks at the Lexington Park Volunteer Rescue Squad, it's his family secret sauce, so you definitely want to come out to that. Starts at 5 p.m., support a great organization. I want to touch on 2 more serious things. First off, last week, our St. Mary's County Animal Services shared a post about if you own 5 or more dogs, you are considered a commercial animal establishment, and you need to get a license for that. Now, this is something that I've been opposed to. When we passed the ordinance, and Commissioner Hewitt rightfully advocated, hey, we need to get something out there, we need to move forward on this, but then we can go back and make changes as we need. And I had conversations with our county attorney a couple months ago, and the idea was, well, we would hold off until our delegation passes the changes we want in Annapolis. Well, the delegation decided not to take our legislation forward, so I'm asking now, I've already spoken to our county administrator and county attorney, asking them to bring that back, because owning 5 dogs does not make you commercial. You still need to follow all the other rules. You cannot mistreat your animals, and those rules still apply, but owning 5 dogs should not require someone to get a kennel license through our county. That's just government overreach to the extreme. It shouldn't be doing that. And then finally, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, or I should say the elephant in the country. There's been a lot of uncertainty at the federal level with what's happening. Now, I think, I can't speak for the other commissioners, but I think everybody agrees that we want to see more efficiencies in federal government, and we want to see our federal government tax dollars being used more efficiently. But blanket firings of probationary workers is not a good way to do it, and it will have significant impacts for St. Mary's County if this comes to pass. It's already having impacts. We have a very large population of federal employees who do phenomenal and important work, very important work, and this idea that they are just not trusted or not valued is unfortunate. They are very valued. They support the warfighter every day. They're doing good stuff. If there's firings, we talk about the state impacts on our county budget. This will have significant impacts on our county budget because of the income tax and what that means. And then if they move away property tax, what does that mean? It's not a good thing, and hopefully the federal government can kind of pause and do a little bit more thought and strategic look at what steps they want to take going forward. Not saying they shouldn't take steps, but just plan it out a little better and make sure that they're taking the right course of action. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Aldrin?
Thank you. Had a busy weekend. Had a lot of stuff going on. Thursday evening, I was at the reception with Commissioner Hewitt. We rode up together on the bus that was offered, bus trip that was offered through St. Mary's County Chamber of Commerce. And for those who don't know, if you want to go to this reception, you don't need to be an elected official or a business owner. Just contact Tri-County Council, and you could have purchased a ticket, buy your ticket for the trip up there through Chamber, and come up, and that way you can get up close and, well, I hate to say up close and personal like they're celebrities, but you get to talk to your legislators face to face in a good and formal environment. And with a lot of, you can get a lot of information having those informal conversations in a nice laid back atmosphere. And it was a good time, a little loud, having conversations. The band was a little loud, but, food is good. Unfortunately, we did after action, the Tri-County Council meeting yesterday morning. We did an after action, and seems that we might have started a little too late, and we picked a bad day because 4 other committees were having their dinners. Western Maryland legislators were having their reception, which is a gigantic reception, and there was another one that the governor and the comptroller were at. We couldn't pull that. We don't have that kind of pull yet, but we're gonna work on that. But do know that next year when it rolls around, I will make sure that everybody knows. So if you want to hop on the bus with us and go up there and break bread with your legislators and meet some other people around the county, you're more than welcome. Friday, I had a great opportunity to take some real downtime with some friends of mine. I had driven up from North Carolina. And we met in D.C., had dinner, and went to go see a couple bands actually. And it was a great time. And one of the best surprises about it was, as we're sitting there talking in the venue, in comes this other couple. Well, they're a couple from down here in Leonardtown, and I hadn't seen them since high school. I hadn't seen Josh, the husband, since high school, and it was like old home week. And it's great to get back to touching base with those people, and the music is just, background noise when you're hanging around with good friends like that. And so I highly recommend taking that downtime, catching up with old friends. It's very restorative. Yesterday was once again at the St. Mary's County Black History Month Donna K. Somerville Scholarship Presentation. This is the 3rd year I've done it. It is one of my first forays into presenting a proclamation solo a couple years ago. And I will say that they have always greeted me with open arms, made me feel welcome. And like I said, when we did the proclamation for Black History Month earlier this month, food's fantastic. Atmosphere is great. We had 5 scholarship winners this year. So it's $5,000 that this 501c3 cranked up for these kids. And have one student, this one that really stands out, you don't hear about it for 2 reasons. Young lady from Chopticon is going to North Carolina State to study nuclear engineering because she wants to do small nuclear reactors for 3rd world countries. And I'm like, you know what? That is some really forward thinking. Now, if she just go ahead and get Annapolis on the same boat, we'd be in great shape considering some of our electric bills. Yesterday morning, I was at Tri-County Council once again, and part of that was the after action. And then we were able to finalize an RFP for a meat processing facility in St. Mary's County. The RAC died. The RAC died a death that it needed to die due to the cost and the lack of movement on it. A private provider came in. He's almost done with where they need to be to get USDA approval. We did the grant application yesterday, got that finalized. We should have news on that on Thursday. Approval should be done by mid-April, and the Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, by October, we might have an actual USDA certified meat processing facility for our ag providers in Southern Maryland. And I'm really looking forward to that, and I can't wait to be at that ribbon cutting. So stay tuned on that. To go along with that, this will help the souls out there, Commissioner Colvin. To go along with that, I did speak to some members of the Farm Bureau, and they are extremely excited about this, and they are waiting to hear news just like we are. And I look forward to presenting that to everybody, and looking forward to the budget session this afternoon.
Okay, Commissioner Ostroff.
All right, so, this past Saturday, I had the privilege to be able to attend the Spirits event at the Pax River Museum. Great opportunity, great crowd turned out for that, and it's getting out and supporting local businesses, local distillers here in St. Mary's County and throughout southern Maryland. So just a great group of people, wonderful organization. I'm all about supporting local and doing that. So it was a privilege to be able to go and deliver the proclamation there. Met a lot of great folks who really have some amazing products, and not just distillers were there, local vendors, and it was a wonderful event. And they do hold it every year, so looking forward to doing that again next year. Also, while there at the museum, had a chance to speak with the manager of the Pax River Museum, or the director, and he told me that they had just signed the lease on the J.F. Taylor building there. So they'll be moving into that, and so looking forward to attending that opening once they get that up and running and off the ground. So that's going to be a great move for them to expand. It'll help them with parking, help them with a lot of space needs there. So absolutely fantastic news to hear that, and looking forward towards the end of, or midsummer, end of summer, to be able to go there and attend that ribbon cutting for that. Also on Sunday, was able to attend the Black History Coalition's 12th annual scholarship luncheon with Commissioner Alderson, and absolutely concur with everything he said. Those are an amazing group of young people. I don't want to say kids. Young people who I actually made the comment to Commissioner Alderson. One of the young ladies had a 4.6 GPA in high school, and it just amazes me. The young people that are going through high school today are so many light years ahead of what we were studying and what we were doing in high school at that time. One of the young ladies wants to be a speech pathologist. The other one wants to go into to medicine. Just incredible what these young people are looking to do, and how they want to serve their community and really truly the world. So absolutely just amazing to be there and see that. I want to touch on Commissioner Colvin brought it up. Lot of talk throughout the county about RIFs. As everybody knows, the base is in my district. Had a lot of conversations with a lot of people who are very concerned. A lot of different rumors floating around out there. RIFs have already started. Things are going to happen. We're going to lose, a lot of people. And I absolutely wholeheartedly agree that all of our federal employees are valued and very important. But I want to assure everybody, I have spoken with leadership on the base. No RIFs have taken place as of yet. There is a law that states that before anybody can be RIFed through the DOD, there has to be a study performed to see how that would adversely or negatively affect the military. So until such a study is performed, no RIFs can be done. So just want to assure people of that. I am in fairly constant contact with the skipper on the base and a lot of other leadership that is there on base. So I will provide updates as I hear them, but I just want to advise people, don't believe everything you see, again, on social media. Don't believe what you hear somebody else thought they heard or somebody said. If you have questions, you can reach out to the base as well. You can reach out to this commissioner, and I'm happy to provide whatever information that I can about it, and I am certainly happy if I don't know the answer, I will find out the answer for you. So please, please, please don't believe everything you're hearing. There's a lot of panic talking out there about it right now. And then it's always great as a commissioner to get to do constituent services. Had a gentleman reach out to me about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, because somebody had moved out of a property that was adjacent to them on the other side of a ravine, and rather than them take their trash to the dump and dispose of it properly, they just decided they'd throw it down in the bottom of the ravine, and it was a huge mess. And they had approached Lugham and DPW, and they just needed some help on figuring out how we could get that cleaned up. I was able to, so I want to give a big shout out to the folks at Lugham, the folks at DPT&W, and our own John Hauser, who helped with that to get that looked into, find out who owned the property, how we could get that mess cleaned up, and the mess the county was able to send somebody out to have that all cleaned up and removed. So it does work. Sometimes it's great when it works, when a constituent reaches out and we're able to help them so they can enjoy their property, the view from their property, and so we can also clean up from the county. So that was just great. And a big shout out to everybody who was involved in that. Just a lot of fast footwork from the county. So absolutely great to see and be part of. Once again, budget work session, 1:30 p.m. today. We'll be looking at CIP with a $15 million cut to what we were originally planning. This is really gonna, we say this every year, it's gonna be a really tough budget year. And this commissioner certainly believes that we really need to look hard at a lot of our CIP projects throughout the county. We need to make sure that we're holding the line where we can on spending, and we're really looking to push out any CIP projects that we can. I want to look to see, and we'll talk about it, if there are any projects that won't cause, panic and angst and difficulty in the community, that maybe perhaps we can either push way out or perhaps cut altogether. We're going to need to look at those things. We're going to need to look at really how we're spending things and making sure that we are focusing on maintaining what we have before we take on any new projects in the county, and so we can control the limited amount of funds that we do have. So we're going to be looking very hard at that budget. And also, lastly, this coming weekend, it is going to be some beautiful weather. I think we're getting some rain on Thursday. But other than that, it's going to be some gorgeous weather throughout the county. I think Commissioner Hewitt is right. Spring may be on its way. So get out there, enjoy beautiful St. Mary's County. We still have lots of farmers markets going on. I'm looking forward to perhaps this weekend, if I get some time, getting out and pulling some weeds in my garden and starting to prep that soil and getting it ready for a great growing season with all the snow and rain that we've had. It's going to be great soil to work in. It's going to be a wonderful season for growing vegetables. But get out there, support local, enjoy beautiful St. Mary's County, and look forward to seeing everybody back here at 1:30.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Well, my weekend was spent visiting my grandson, who is going very, very well. The grandmother bought him some, I suppose you could call it anti-skid socks, because he's running around a lot and he was slipping on the floor with his socks on. So my wife found some little pairs of socks with little rubber dots on the bottom of it. I just couldn't believe it. So now he's running harder than ever now. So but it was a very good visit. He still has special needs. Unfortunately, he's got lung problems, but he's actually off oxygen during the daytime and just at night only. He's doing very well, growing, so everything's going very well. I will say our budget process is going to be very difficult, and I know we got our new budget CFO. It's going to be a pretty tough time for her this year to satisfy all the commissioners with the budget process. But not knowing what the state is going on and the turmoil at the federal level, this is going to be an unbelievable year for our budget. And so I will warn all the directors and school system and everything to be very cautious what you ask for, because you may not get it. And it's going to be tough. We've already pretty much identified about over 2 million that's going to be coming back to us to fund that the state normally funds. And what I heard this past week is going to be more than that. We know about 2 million right now, and probably even more. So it's going to be a lot of caution thrown up until and now the states plan on extending their session until the 7th of May because they just can't come up with a good solution at this time. It's going to be very difficult. And I have to put I don't know, I'm very concerned about our federal level as we are almost condemning those that work for the federal government. It's just, I can't believe it. I spent 26 years in the military. My wife spent 40 years in federal employment. I feel we both worked very hard for our what we have and what we've done in the past, and to hear the criticism about the federal employees it's too much. There's just no way. These people have worked hard. Many of them have, and is there cuts somehow? Yeah, possibly. But that needs to be looked individually, each department, to let them decide what can be cut and what can't be cut. So I'm very concerned about the Department of Defense. I certainly hope we don't dwell too much on that. I'm glad to hear from you that, Astro, that it'll have to go through a committee because we don't want to really fool with our Defense Department that far. So anyway, we'll see what happens here in the next few months. But for us, the state budget is going to be our big primary goal. And also, we depend a lot on federal grants as well. So that could very much be cut also. So that's going to be some tremendous impacts that we're looking at. So we'll do our best, though. I assure you that our goal as commissioners is to provide the best service we can to our people. Emergency services have to be maintained. We do want good schools. And transportation and roads is very important. Those things have got to be all done. We are a service provider, and we got to keep that up. And we'll try to maintain everything we can. With that being said, I am ready to look for a close to this message. We need to have go into closed session.
I move to enter into closed session to discuss real property.
Second.
Have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.